Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, buoyed by recent quarterly 1% range growth, Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok says the Korean economy could expand more than the government's forecast of 2.7% this year. As security tensions between China and Japan escalate near a disputed island chain in the East China Sea, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe reaffirms his intent to bolster the country's self-defense forces. Plus, the US National Security Agency denies a German media report that Washington has been spying on German Chancellor Angela Merkel since 2002, and US President Barack Obama was first informed of the surveillance in 2010. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Monday, October 28th, and I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul. We begin with some great economic news for Korea. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok says the economy has entered a recovery phase and is expected to post growth of nearly 3% this year. But the minister stresses economic stimulus bills would need to be approved by Parliament to maintain the trend. Our Kim Min-ji has this report.
Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok says the Korean economy has entered a phase of recovery and could post growth of 2.9% this year. In an interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News Sunday, Hyun said the nation's gross domestic product grew 1.1% in the third quarter from the previous quarter, when it also gained at the same pace, indicating the country is on the road to recovery. The two consecutive quarterly gains in the 1% range marks the first in nearly 3 years. The Korean economy also grew 3.3% in the same period from a year earlier, the fastest growth in nearly 2 years, spurred by improved consumer spending and a pickup in facility investment. The finance minister said that if the current trend continues, the nation's annual economic growth will surpass the 2.7% projected earlier in the year. Hyun said Korea will post 2.9% growth for 2013 if it maintains a 1.1% gain in the fourth quarter. The minister also called on the National Assembly to pass 102 pending bills on job creation and economic revitalization in order to maintain the current growth rate. He warned the recovery will slow if the bills are not passed on time. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye has nominated former Deputy Prosecutor General Kim Jin-tae as the new prosecution chief. Kim, who has also served as the head of the Seoul High Prosecutor's Office and the Seoul Northern District Prosecutor's Office, led high-profile corruption and bribery cases involving former President Roh Tae-woo and former President Kim Dae-jung's son. Senior Presidential Public Relations Secretary Lee Jung-hyun says the Prosecutor General nominee has abundant experience in the field and is well known for his integrity. The latest nomination comes a month after former Prosecutor General Choi Dong-wook resigned over allegations he had a child out of wedlock. Kim's parliamentary hearing is expected to begin as early as the second week of November. South Korea is reportedly in the market to procure over 100 anti-tactical ballistic missiles from the US as it looks to secure its own air defense system instead of relying on its biggest ally. The US Defense Security Cooperation Agency, which handles overseas military sales, says it notified Congress last Friday that Seoul contacted it about a possible sale of US Patriot missiles, as well as related gear, training, and logistical support worth slightly over $400 million. The move comes as South Korea takes steps to build its own defense system called the Korean Air and Missile Defense in the coming years amid increasing missile threats from North Korea. It has emerged that some of the 6 South Koreans handed over by North Korea last Friday had a history of posting pro-North Korea messages and propaganda on the internet before they enter the North. Authorities investigating the case said Sunday that the 6 crossed the border between 2009 to 2012, crossing either the Yalu or Tumen River, which run near the border between North Korea and China. Authorities say business failures and family problems may have triggered some of them to praise North Korea online after falling under the impression they would be treated nicely once they made their way to the regime. South Korea's foreign ministry is coming under heavy criticism for its use of unauthorized footage from Japanese broadcaster NHK in a promotional video for the Dokdo Islets. The ministry removed the 12-minute video from its website and from YouTube on Friday, 10 days after it was first posted online, and only after NHK complained that it contained clips from a 2011 drama series depicting the Russo-Japanese War. The ministry has expressed deep regret over the video, which it says was outsourced and produced by a private production company. This blunder comes amid a reignited diplomatic brawl between Korea and Japan after Japan's foreign ministry posted its own video staking Tokyo's territorial claims over the Dokdo Islets ahead of Dokdo Day here in Korea.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday that tensions between China and Japan are reaching dangerously new levels, with the two nations provoking each other through increasingly military means. The Chinese government even used the term active war in response to Tokyo's approval of a plan to shoot down any foreign drones that refuse to leave its airspace. Our Oh Jin-ju reports.
The territorial dispute between China and Japan is taking on an increasingly militaristic tone. The Japan Self-Defense Forces held a military review near Tokyo on Sunday, featuring some 4,000 troops and hundreds of armored vehicles and fighter jets. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe attended the ceremony and emphasized the importance of a strong self-defense forces.
Security threats against Japan are becoming real, including the threat posed by North Korea's ballistic missiles.
So while it may seem North Korea is the reason behind Japan's push to strengthen its military capability, watchers say Abe's comments are actually aimed at China. Abe reiterated that he will exercise the right to collective self-defense, even if it means a review of the government's constitutional interpretation. On Saturday, the Chinese government angrily responded to a Japanese media report which said Abe had approved a plan to shoot down any foreign drones that ignored warnings to leave Japanese airspace.
If Japan does what it said and resorts to enforcement measures like shooting down aircraft, that is a serious provocation to us. It is an act of war. We will surely undertake decisive decision to strike back.
In protest against Tokyo's latest moves, China sent 4 military jets to waters near Okinawa for 3 straight days from Friday to Sunday. Japan scrambled fighter jets in response. Tensions between the two nations are expected to escalate further over the next couple of weeks, as China is currently conducting its largest ever naval exercise in the Western Pacific. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
New claims are emerging over the extent at which US intelligence agencies have been listening into German Chancellor Angela Merkel's mobile phone conversations. This time, sources say US President Barack Obama was personally informed 3 years ago of the phone tapping on Merkel. Our Sun Jung-in has the latest.
In yet another bombshell in the widening U.S. bugging scandal, German newspaper Bild am Sonntag quotes U.S. intelligence sources as saying National Security Agency Chief Keith Alexander briefed President Obama on the operation against Merkel in 2010, but Obama agreed to let it continue. It was reported last week that Obama had told Merkel over the phone that he had not been aware of the bugging. The News Weekly went on to say leaked NSA documents show Merkel's phone has appeared on a list of spying targets since 2002. These new revelations are sure to create more controversy, even though the NSA refutes the newspaper's claims. Germany and Brazil, another target of the NSA, are working on a UN resolution which will call for extending UN's multilateral treaty to protect privacy on the internet. Diplomats from the two countries with a coalition of nations, including France, Sweden, and Norway, are leading efforts to draft the resolution and put it to the full General Assembly in late November. British Prime Minister David Cameron broke ranks with other European countries by siding with the US and criticizing former NSA contractor Edward Snowden and unnamed newspapers for helping Britain's enemies.
Is what Snowden is doing, and to an extent what the newspapers are doing in helping him doing what he's doing, is frankly signaling to people who mean to do us harm how to evade and avoid intelligence and surveillance and other techniques.
Germany is sending its Secret Service officials to the U.S. to seek what it calls complete information about the alleged surveillance from Washington. Son Jang-in, Arirang News.
A wave of car bombs has exploded in the Iraqi capital Baghdad, killing at least 55 and injuring dozens more. 10 separate blasts hit markets and commercial areas in predominantly Shia areas on Sunday. In the northern city of Mosul, an explosion outside a government bank killed around a dozen soldiers who were waiting to collect their salaries. Sunni insurgents linked to al-Qaeda are thought to be behind the attacks. Sectarian violence fueled by the civil war in neighboring Syria is now running at the highest level since 2008, with around 7,000 civilians killed so far this year. Such is the level of bloodshed that Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki will travel to Washington this week to seek help from President Obama. The Prime Minister's aides say he will ask Obama to speed up supplies for Iraq's Air Force in order to protect its long desert border with Syria. And back here in the country, a growing number of farmers here in Korea's South Jeolla province are going green by doing away with chemical pesticides and fertilizers in favor of organic alternatives. Our Polly has more.
The harvesting of rich golden grain fields is in full swing here at this plantation near Naju City, south of Seoul. Although Korea was spared from devastating typhoons this year, farmers have been dealing with a surge in insects and other pests eating up crops. Instead of using harsh pesticides, farmer Lee Jae-hak decided to take a more environmentally friendly approach.
Spraying these microorganisms on the crops controls pests very well. I don't need to worry about plant disease or pests. I feel like a farmer that's free from pesticides.
Yi is one of the growing number of farmers in Korea who have opted to use natural organic-based solutions for pest control and soil fertilization. Park Jung-woo, who has been in the pepper farming industry for more than 30 years, was hesitant to let go of his chemical pesticides and fertilizers, but says the results speak for themselves.
Through the use of microorganisms, the crops have come out well and hardy. The first batch of crops are growing well without any signs of disease.
In order to simplify the process, the National Agricultural Cooperative is supporting farmers with the mass culture tanks and other equipment needed to go completely pesticide-free. Researchers from Jeonnam National University have been helping farmers reach this goal.
By engaging farmers through theoretical lectures and practical courses, we are creating a roadmap for farmers to actively utilize and cultivate actual chitin-decomposing microbes.
Korea hopes its efforts will boost the marketability of its agricultural products and lead to the commercial export of the eco-friendly technologies to Southeast Asian countries. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
The street leading up to Gwanghwamun in downtown Seoul is set to go car-free at least one day every week starting next year. Officials say they hope to transform the area for pedestrians and festivals with similar plans for other cultural districts across the city. Our Han Da-eun has more.
Gwanghwamun Plaza has been the place to be to experience some of Korea's biggest events in recent years, such as the opening of the 2002 World Cup. Gwanghwamun is one of the most recognizable landmarks in the capital city, with growing public demand to open up its roads for urban festivals and other events.
I wish there were a lot of places like Gwanghwamun Street where everyone could gather and have fun. It'd be great if a lot of these public places were open so we could spend time with family and friends there.
In response, the Seoul metropolitan government will be closing the busy street off to traffic once every week starting next year. City officials say it's just the first step in making Seoul more pedestrian-friendly.
The walking street will operate every Sunday and then eventually be expanded to pedestrian-only streets once it gets more familiar. We're planning on establishing a framework on transforming Gwanghwamun Street into a walking paradise.
The car-free zone will cover some 12 vehicle lanes and stretch over 500 meters from the Gwanghwamun Palace gates to the Sejongno intersection. The city has been introducing more and more of these popular car-free days to other districts, from the youthful neighborhood of Hongdae to the cultural mecca of Itaewon. 37 car-free street events were held across the city this year alone, up 32% on year. The car-free streets are expected to become even more prevalent as they reduce traffic accidents, reduce greenhouse emissions, and promote the local tourism industry. 한다은, Arirang News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2013 Korean series between the Doosan Bears and the Samsung Lions. After the Doosan Bears swept both games in Daegu, the Samsung Lions were getting desperate for a win as the series came to Seoul at Jamsil Stadium. So with that said, let's take a look at the highlights from Game 3 of the 2013 Korean series. Of course, starting pitchers in the game, Yoo Hee-kwan for the Doosan Bears and Chang Won-sam for the Samsung Lions. But in the fourth inning of the game, Park Han-hee is going to ground this one to short, but an error by Son Ji-yeon scores Park Sung-min, and the Samsung Lions take a 1-0 lead. Next play, Lee Ji-young sends this one to left field, and tagging up is Choi Young-woo, and it's 2-0 Samsung. Seventh inning of the game, Park Han-hee on third base, and a wild pitch brings home the third run of the game. Gonna shift over to the bottom of the inning. Hong Sung-eun, line drive down the left field line, and this one is gone. A solo shot cuts the deficit to 3-1. We're gonna go over to our next play. Same inning, same here. Son Ji-yeon, he's gonna single to right field, and here comes Oh Jae-won to score, and he is safe, but he's gonna pull his hamstring on the play as he's taken out of the game. Ninth inning, Oh Seung-hwan in to close the game. Choi Jung-seok grounds out to second base, and it's one man out. Next batter, Hong Sung-eun, called strike 3. Next batter, Yang Yi-ji, and he goes around strike 3. Ball game over. The Samsung Lions take game 3 as Doosan now take a 2-1 series lead. And now moving on to some Sunday's K-League Classic action as Gangwon FC beat Jeonnam Dragons 2-1 with Busan and Incheon drawing 0-0 and Daegu FC and Seongnam drawing 0-0 as well. So with that said, let's take a look at the big matchup here. The Ulsan Hyundai Tigers taking on the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. Now Suwon trying to close in on the K-League Classic title here as Rafinha in the 13th minute of the match finds the back of the net, and it's 1-0 Ulsan. Now, before the first half closes in the 39th minute of the match, Suwon looking quite aggressive, and Seo Jung-jin gets one past the goalkeeper, and the match is tied 1-1. Now stays that way until the second half of the game. The big man Kim Shin-wook in the 64th, and there it is, 2-1 Ulsan. Now Suwon trying to find the equalizer, but to no avail as Ulsan takes 3 points and a 5-point lead in the standings. All right, next up, let's take a look at some basketball highlights from the nation on Sunday as KT Sonic Boom beat the struggling Seoul Samsung Thunders 89-82, thanks to Ira Clark's 29 points and 8 rebounds. So with that said, let's take a look at the other two games that took place, starting off with the rematch of last year's championship, Seoul's SK Knights taking on Ulsan Mobis Phoebus. Of course, going into the game here, a close game from the start as SK takes a slim 18-17 lead thanks to Courtney Sims' 10 points in the quarter, before SK extends that lead to 36-30 going into halftime, with Aaron Haynes of the SK Knights putting up 10 points in the second quarter. Now, SK continues to run away with it in the third quarter of the game, but Ulsan's Moon Tae-young lighting it up in the fourth quarter as Mobile starts rallying late in the game. But with 11 seconds left late in the game, it's Aaron Haynes with a clutch shot wins it for SK. 78-76 is your final score. All right, next up, Incheon Itilan Elephants taking on Wonju Dongbu Promi. First quarter, Dongbu controlling the paint, take a slim 20-17 lead. Second quarter, despite Herbert Hill's 11 points in the second quarter, Itilan storms back to take the slim 39-38 lead going into the second half of the game. Third quarter, Dongbu's defense making it tough for Incheon as Dongbu takes the lead back once again. By the fourth quarter, Dongbu's offense nowhere to be seen as Chabawi lights it up with 8 points in the quarter as Incheon rallies back once again. 71-58 is your final score. All right, and finishing things off in Formula One racing with the Indian Grand Prix taking place over the weekend, Sebastian Vettel of Red Bull Racing looked to win his fourth straight world championship, and he did. The 26-year-old German delivers a perfect race on the day as he claims the top podium spot for the sixth straight race and claiming his fourth straight world championship victory. It becomes just the fourth racer in history to win 4 world championships, as Red Bull Racing also claims the Constructors' Championship for the 4th straight year as well. Now 6 years younger than Michael Schumacher when he won his 4th, Vettel hopes to break the record of 7 world championships in the coming years. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Monday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, fall is in full effect. Yes, the autumn colors are pretty much everywhere, looking quite stunning, huh? Well, it looks like we'll have another day of fair weather, but morning lows in most regions are starting out in the single digits, which is something that we should start get used to. But afternoon highs will looking to make it to about 20 degrees today across the nations. And this morning we'll start out with lots of sunshine, but as we go through the day, more clouds will be rolling into the nation. So the sky will turn into mostly to partly sunny skies. But tomorrow, the central region will wake up to overcast skies and see showers in spots in the afternoon, while the rest of the country will have a repeat of today's weather condition. So expect cooler afternoon for the northern parts of the peninsula, while the southern regions will have a similar readings as today. And if we take a closer look at the weather outlook for this week, which is the last week of October already, other than rain tomorrow, it's looking good. We'll have a beautiful fall weather and temperatures will be hovering in the upper teens across the nation under the nice sunshine. With that in mind, it's time to take a look at the readings for today. Morning lows in Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju will start out at 7 this morning, which is similar to yesterday. But afternoon highs in Seoul will make it to 19 degrees Celsius, that's 66 degrees in Fahrenheit. And Daegu and Busan will get up to 20 and 21 degrees respectively. And it looks like Jeju Island and Daejeon will also start a chilly morning, but afternoon highs should be tad milder than yesterday, and Mount Kumgang will rise to 10. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. Well, there are some patches of fog in some of the inland region and northern parts of Gyeongbuk area, so please keep that in mind and drive with extra caution. Well, that's all for me at this hour. Enjoy your morning commute and hope you have a wonderful day.
And those are the stories we have for you this hour. Stay with us throughout the day as we bring you the latest headlines.